Energy is just information that vibrates. All medicine is working with energy.
But things like that, I have a hard time wrapping my head around and agreeing with.
They don't look at the proof that we have a biofield. Like the oil and gas industry. They don't want solar because all their money, therefore profit. In America, we have 10,000 chemicals in our food.
Doing things more grassroots, is that even sustainable anymore?
Right now, we're at this tipping point because people can't afford to live within the current industrial revolution model. Okay.
How you doing?
I'm good. I have a cold. I'm a very poor patient. I just want to be done before it started.
Yeah.
But I'm good. I'm in a smooth kind of a place.
Yeah, what does that mean?
It means even though I'm over busy and have too much work, which I think is true of most of us if we run our own businesses, I feel like I'm able to glide through it and keep my priorities.
Yeah.
Which are friends, really. You know, you, your brother, my grandbaby, making dinner, doing the animals. There's certain things I don't cancel out, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. Be able to tolerate some distress and keep things going, I guess.
Well, I think that's probably what I help people with the most. And so a lot of what I do is energetic release of trauma and then activating who we really are underneath.
Can you adjust the mic so it's kind of like, yep, there you go.
Okay. And so the way I see it is we can keep up with the daily stress and even overstressors and drama if we're not carrying around bags of old drama. That's the stuff I don't like, is all the old traumas and old dramas. I don't think any of us want those, but they have to be unwrapped like presents. And then I think it's important to take a nugget out of them and then disappear the energy of it.
What does that mean, to disappear an energy? Well,
I literally work with energy healing and define the stressor energies as charges. I mean, I'm really much a scientist at heart, and I could geek out right now, which could be boring for you or other people. But we either, with an event or a situation or a place in our body or a wound or whatever it might be, there's either too much negatively charged energy or there's too much positively charged energy. And then we're not neutral. So most trauma is too much negatively charged energy or electrons that get trapped. And there's a lot of science behind what I'm saying. And different researchers have healed people of eye disease and cancers when they balance out where there's an injury site, whether it's emotional in its origin or physical in its origin, when they get rid of those charges, that there are too many of them in the body. I don't think energy healing is all that hard. It's just, where do you have too much of something and how do you balance it out?
Makes sense. Can you explain the science, but try to keep it understandable for most people?
For what? Energy healing?
Yeah.
We are, everybody and everything in the world, hi Garfield, is comprised of energy.
What does that mean?
Energy is just information that vibrates. So it's the information in a coffee cup that says that it's coffee molecules rather than tea molecules. It's the movement or the vibration of those molecules that are going to make your coffee hot or cold. Everything in the world, whether we see it or not, is based on that definition. And when we do energy healing, usually what we're talking about is we're working with the subtle energy. You're mainly subtle energy, Garfield. The 99.999% of energy that's subtle, that we don't know how to measure with our typical measurements. That's why it can seem like magic or that we're opening to miracles. We are. Thank you, Garfield. He's very helpful.
Yep.
And he's not so subtle about it either. He says, it's all about me. But the origin of most problems is in the subtle. It's in the fields of sound and light that we don't know how to measure. So we have to use our intuition to get there. I believe in allopathic medicine, Western medicine. That's also energy healing. It's just energy. When you go through surgery, That's energy. That's energy healing.
Can you explain that a little bit more? How, like, going through a surgery would be considered energy healing? Because I think that would be a hard concept for a lot of people to wrap their brains around.
I bet it is, but it shouldn't be. So, all medicine is working with energy. If somebody has a tumor, it's because the energy is, the cancer is an energetic imprint, and the body can't recognize it, so it allows it to grow. And it even feeds nutrients and blood vessels to it. So when you want to work with subtle energy, you'd be going in there and seeing what caused it or whose emotions are in there. But having surgery is also working energetically. You're just getting rid of that tumor with physical energy rather than looking at subtle or emotional energy. It's all energetic healing. It's just, are you doing it with more density, like with the physical, or with the subtle, which is most of the world is subtle.
Sure. I'm trying to think of like what I want to ask. Yeah, I think like the gap for someone like me is like understanding how does, like, if energy healing actually like does anything or not, right? Like that's where I come from with it a lot. So
let's take the liver, any liver, any organ, right? Science has proven that 99.999% of all energy that makes up anything is subtle. So if you have a tumor in your liver, you can see an X-ray or get a CAT scan. A surgeon can go in and cut it out or show you on an ultrasound what's happening, right? Mm-hmm. So then we think that that's the only way that we can work energetically. But the truth is that liver is quantum. Quanta are very small particles that move faster. They exchange data faster than the speed of light. And they're kind of everywhere at once. And your liver's made out of mainly quantum waves. Mm-hmm. And those go into your energy field. Those can connect into the universe. Those can connect to somebody else, etc. And so just because we haven't been trained to perceive, what most of the liver is or to feel what's really happening with it doesn't mean it's not real. We know that the liver is mainly quantum energy. We're trying to figure out patterns of subtle energy. We're doing healing now with sound and healing with different kinds of light because it impacts to a greater degree, more diseases than you can do just with a scalpel, or just by trying to get a picture of something you can't see.
What do you feel like the efficacy is of a lot of the studies and things that you reference to?
Well, I love referencing the studies on meridians. Mm-hmm. Those are channels that run through the connective tissue in the body. And they have been proven over and over again to really exist. Even 2018, there was a study, and it goes back for decades, that different researchers have kind of shot into the body. It sounds kind of weird, but dye or radioactive isotopes, and then been able to track the movement of those isotopes through not the lymph tissue, not the blood vessels, but through the actual meridians. And I just the other day read a study about the interstitium. It's an organ that science just recently discovered. It's like a layer inside of the fascia, and it's in the head and it's through the body. And this study, this article, I think it was in Newsweek, was actually saying, wow, this is the connection between Eastern and Western medicine. Because in this interstitium are pathways exactly matching the ancient Chinese meridians that doctors for thousands of years, Western medical doctors, have laughed at. And now they've proven that they're in the interstitium. They're in a part of the connective tissue. So we know these things exist. I think just the average person doesn't learn about them in school, and the average doctor doesn't study them. And so I remember years and years ago, my uncle was dying. He was a surgeon. And we were raised with him. He was Jewish. That family was Jewish. So we were Protestant and raised with a Jewish family. And his brother was in town. He was a surgeon also. They had lost a lot of their family in the Holocaust, which is why I'm very anti what's happening in America right now, because it's like we're setting all that up again. But I remember Uncle Vic, my Uncle Mike's brother, laughing at acupuncture. Like, well, it's not real. And we've got evidence that the meridians are real. We know what the chakras are. They're related to really early embryology and the development of they're called ganglion cells and gap junctions. But the bottom line is they're in the physical body. They're spaces in the body that also have nervous system connections that go into the endocrine glands. That's what the chakras are. Thousands of years ago, who figured this out? They didn't have x-ray machines. They didn't have CAT scans. They didn't inject people with dye. They saw this intuitively. They perceived this with their sixth sense. So that's why so many energy healers, I think, get mocked, because they're able to perceive these things with their vision, with their psychic vision, or they hear a guide telling them about it, or they feel where the block is in the body. But they're reading the subtle energy, and we know we're mainly made out of subtle energy or quantum waves. And we know that these things exist because we can measure them. We can see them now.
So if
it's about money. You know why the medical community doesn't want to grow up and embrace the subtle? It's money. It's far easier to prescribe prescription meds, something like Prozac, which we have no idea how well it works long term, if it's safe or not. It's much easier to make money on surgery, which I'm a believer in surgery. If you need surgery, get surgery. If you need a medicine, get medicine. It's all chemicals. It's all energy. It's all chemicals. But it's very hard to quantify how to make money on subtle energy.
So you feel like the adaptation to things has been low because of money and profits and things like that?
Money. It's all money. There's a man, he's dead now, Dr. Bjorn Nordstrom. He was a radiologist. He sat on the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, and he was healing cancer and eye disease by tracking what he called the current of energy, the current of injury, through the meridians, into the cardiovascular system, into the neurological system. He was able to measure, using electrodes and these types of devices, very preliminary devices, wow, there's too much electricity here, or there's too much positively charged particles. And when he balanced them out, people were healing. This isn't that complicated. But if we could really heal cancer with vaccines, which, by the way, we have a lot of cancer vaccines now that work if they're administered early. If we could really do a lot of this with nanotechnology, which, by the way, we could. If we could do a lot more with CRISPR, which we can. If we can track the balance of electricity and magnetics, which we can. If we can be using sound, which we can, to figure out if people have cancer, or to change what's called the epigenomes. The epigenome is chemical soups that are around the genes that really cause a lot of diseases. We have what we need, even in the medical field. So why isn't available? It's not available. It's not all subtle, but is subtle energy being made practical? I tell you, it's money.
So things like that, I have a hard time wrapping my head around and agreeing with, because when like whatever thing there is for like a cure or something like that, my place that I go to is like that would drive more money and profits of things, because you have the ability to control the narrative of it. You know, you have ability to control supply and demand of it. On top of that, like the weight of something like that, of people finding out, would be detrimental to an industry or a company or et cetera.
Well, first of all, people don't go research. They don't do their own research. Very, very few people do their own research. They don't look at the science journals. They don't look at what's happening in subtle medicine. They don't look at the proof that we have a biofield that is shaping what's happening. It's all out there, but they don't take self-responsibility to do the research. First, it's easier to dumb ourselves down and just think somebody has the answer and we don't have to go find it ourselves. And it's like the oil and gas industry. They don't want solar because all their money, therefore profits around the world, are based on oil and gas. It's the same with prescription meds. It's the same with food. In America, we have 10,000 chemicals in our food. I mean, that's insane. That's crazy. We don't need them. But that supports Monsanto. And it supports the industries. So even though there's all these people saying these aren't good for us and we've got plastics in our body, the money controllers don't listen if they're still making money on the old way of doing things. It's got to be grassroots. And there is grassroots. Energy healing is grassroots. It's starting to bubble up. I use energy healing often when people have really critical illnesses in concert with what they're doing in allopathic medicine. I don't say don't do the chemo, don't do the radiation. I tell them do the immunotherapy. That's like really cool treatment. Everybody responds differently to it. Some people get really sick from it. Some people can tolerate it. But I do the supplement, so I make sure that they're clearing the underlying trauma patterns or the emotional issues or what might be caught in there that's putting too many, I would make it simple, positive or weird spiritual charges in there, or negative charges, which largely are emotional, stuck emotions.
So, a couple things that I think of, and I want to be very nuanced in this dialogue part, is the trade-offs of certain things in our field and industry of things, because I think things that you talked about, which were interesting, of like, well, like the oil versus like solar,
right?
Things and discussions like that, right? Of like, or I think another one that I think of is like mass farming, right, and things like that. The nuances of that, of people, I've seen people talk about wanting to have more like, I don't mean humane farms in the sense of like making it more humane for the animals. That's not what I mean. I mean more humane farms and like grass-fed, grass-finished, things like that, right? I've seen people talk about that, but, or, you know, farming different animals or things like that.
Right.
But the way that we've industrialized is, I think, there's a piece of money, absolutely, right? Like, I think that's why people push things for greed, for bottom dollars. But then the more interesting take that I think about it is that too, of like lifestyle creep in finances. As somebody starts to, you know, make more money, they're like, well, I can buy this, well, I can buy that, and now their lifestyle is matching their income, which is why you see so many people like will make $100,000 a year, live paycheck to paycheck. The nature of the country and the world is that the reason we are able to have so much abundance of things is because of the industrialization of things. And things like oil versus, like solar is, solar's not as efficient as oil. Now, I am not a fan of oil. I am personally like a fan of like nuclear energy. I think that's
right. I agree.
And then that's where I think the hurdles of people's emotions and things like that about, nuclear energy, fears, while understandable, misguided, and the money hurdles overcome. So my guess, what my point is like with all that take of like understanding like we live in a very flawed system, but it is the system that like the trade-offs that we've exquisited, and I guess the practicality of doing things more grassroots, but is that even sustainable anymore for the lifestyle that Western modernized countries can even support?
Industrialization has been an important part of growth.
Yeah.
And let's take a look at what's happening just in America with rising debt, with expenditures that are crazy, with the start of the Iran war, with no end in sight, with no benefit from it. Industrialization, basically Trump and Heritage Foundation, et cetera, is going back to McKinley. They just want to create an oligarchy and have it be the already rich and the tech boys to run everything. It's really, really old-fashioned reactionary dogma. And so that's the Industrial Revolution. It's the original model of the Industrial Revolution. So I think many of us are saying, look, we can't even afford to pay rent right now. We can't afford to commute, to work, because that's the end result of going back to a pure Industrial Revolution model. And so I think in energy healing, what we're trying to do is say, wait a minute, this has gotten out of control where we don't even have any knowledge of our own body. We're not processing our own feelings, our own emotions. There was this recent Newsweek article like a few months ago, and it was like, guess what? Food is medicine. That's just stupid. Everybody's known that, who I've known since I was like 10. So we're so far behind within the industries. And I think some of that's on purpose because it is about control. It is about this is how you build your businesses. It's about if you control the data and you make your way the only way. But right now we're at this tipping point because people can't afford to live within the current Industrial Revolution model. It's an insanity.
So one thing that I have thought about is lately I've been on a bit of a Star Wars kick.
Oh, okay. Cool.
My thoughts is because of the nature of humans, we swing very rapidly between black and white.
We do, good and bad.
And with everything that's happening...
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're good. With everything that's happening, and because, believe me, I understand, as being Gen Z, what is happening. Like, gas is $4.30 right now. It costs me almost $100 to fill up my tank.
Cat food is double. Keep going. And,
a studio is about no cheaper than $800. Which is close to a quarter of my monthly income.
Right. Right.
And I don't have any debt.
Right. You're lucky.
Yeah. But to that extremity of things of like, I hear, I've heard you talk about things about finding that information, is that the pendulum swings too far onto things where the middle ground gets lost.
That is our tendency. It's true.
And I think those are the concerns that I have with like things like energy healing in the systems, is that I look at history a lot, and I look at how most revolutions, when they're done, very seldomly lead to higher prosperity and better countries.
It's very true.
French Revolution was one of the like most gruesome times in history. Now, like long term, yes, it worked. The Russian Revolution led to, communism, which led to, and technically it wasn't communism, because communism implies that it's a stateless country, and it's different. There is a state in the Soviet Russia, but how when things get so bad, the pendulum swings so far to the other side that no one system is ever going to be perfect. No one side will ever be right. No one side will ever be wrong. There will be pieces and things, I think, that will be reign true on both sides. Right? Like, I think most people should agree that, like, human rights and birth rights and, trans rights and things like that should be allowed on all things.
I don't think most people would agree to that these days. I do.
Yeah. And I think that's where, like, there's important places to draw lines in the sand on those things. And my place that I'm really getting at is, how do you avoid in something like energy healing swinging back so far to the other side where now you lose force for the trees?
Well, first of all, it's thousands of years old.
Yeah.
It was here before Western medicine. Now, China did brain surgery thousands of years ago, and they did meridian-based therapy. So I think the answer is energy healing, energy medicine includes what we call Western. It isn't an either or. I agree completely how foolish it is for somebody to say they have a lump, and why don't they go get it tested? They should test it. Go find out. Is it cancerous or malignant? If it's super easy to do a lumpectomy, don't just treat it with food. Don't just treat it with red light therapy. Do all of that and get the lump out.
Yeah.
Energy medicine is all of that. It is the full spectrum, and it's thousands of years old. Where we went wrong with Western versus so-called Eastern, or folk medicine versus allopathic, or whatever words you want to use, is that the original medicine, really, the unifying picture of the original medicine is shamanism. When spirit and emotion were joined with physical and nature. And you had all of that together. It recognized the body as all of these. We're part of nature. We're part of whatever you want to call the universe. We have emotions. We're body. And you treat whatever's happening in whatever way makes the most sense to treat it. That you can't distort that simple of a definition of energy healing. Where you get distorted is when people, like you're saying, here's the light force, here's the dark force. They're like, I'm not gonna run a cancer test. I'm just gonna trust that if I pray, and that would be a religious thing, right? Or if I do red light therapy, or if I change my diet, that all these lumps are going to disappear. Well, that's rather ridiculous. I think we can't throw logic out the window, which I find people can often do. We just went through a huge weirdness in the holistic healing community where people were buying into QAnon, which is this crazy philosophy that's all about aliens and Trump's going to rescue, people who are, being, kind of, prostituted. It was completely made up. One of my clients helped invent it. They just put together this philosophy based on what they knew. It was a spoof of going after religious people, New Age people, and then really strange ideas to see if they could fool the population. And they did. So we do have a tendency to want like conspiracies and to want a miracle cure and to not be logical. So I'm very much about logic. We have science studies that say we have a bioelectrical field. It's just logical. If every cell in the body is electrical and makes sound, then we have fields of light and sound that come off of us. That's indefensible. So why aren't we working with that? That's, to me, the logic of energy medicine.
Well, we have to wrap this up right now. So
was fun.
Yeah. Do you have any closing statements?
I think if we avoid the extremes in any industry, in any politics, in any medicine, and keep ourselves more in the middle, I think you're accurate. But people have a tendency to just go into their little Kleenex box and like hang into it and not search.
Yeah.
So I think we have to stay curious.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Check the description for any quizzes or exercises that you may want, and we'll see you next time.
I thought that was a good discussion.
Yeah.
Except I'm blowing my nose.